Welcome to the Ignite series, which aims to provide you mentorship from world-class leaders across their fields. I'm your host, Zara Hassan Ali. I've been working with the UN and the World Bank for the last 15 years. Last Ignite session, we spoke to Eliud Kipchoge, world record holder for the marathon and Olympic gold medalist, who spoke about mental resilience. A key attribute of mental resilience is integrity, or walking the talk. Kipchoge told us that this was really important to his success, so much so that he was even able to win an international marathon with a broken shoe simply because he'd committed to running the race no matter what. Today, we're going to deep dive into a key aspect of mental resilience, which is self-discipline. According to a study that's been done by Willem Hoffman in 2013, high self-control is very important for a happy life. And who better to talk about self-discipline than a Top Gun pilot? Top Gun pilots are amongst the world's best fighter pilots. Indeed, there have been movies and documentaries that have been made about them. For example, the Top Gun movie and its upcoming sequel, Top Gun 2, starring Tom Cruise. Top Gun pilots fly at 1.8 times the speed of sound, carrying almost 1,600 pounds of load, and have to stay focused on their task no matter what, which is a pretty incredible feat in and of itself. Today, our guest is a former Top Gun pilot trainer, Major Chris Severson. Chris holds a double MBA from Columbia University and London Business School, one of the world's most prestigious programs, and is a recognized author and public speaker. Here's a short clip about what it's like to be a Top Gun pilot.
Your instructor is one of the finest pilots this program has ever produced. His exploits are legendary. What he has to teach you may very well mean the difference between life and death.
Thank you for taking the time out to join us, Chris.
Zara, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Likewise. Chris, let me begin by asking, how did you get chosen for Top Gun?
Yeah, sure, Zara. So, I finished university in the U.S. and was commissioned into the United States Marine Corps, where eventually I would enter into the flight training program and was fortunate to do well in primary advanced jet training, where then I was selected into the F-18, the Hornet, which is what I flew for my career. And in the Hornet, I joined my first squadron, flew for upwards of maybe 800 or 900 hours at the time, and then joined my second squadron. And in that second squadron was selected to attend Top Gun. So at that point, it's no longer in Miramar and San Diego where the movie was filmed. It's now in Fallon, Nevada, up in the wide open space of the American desert. And so left the East Coast U.S., went there for, it's about a 9-week, super intensive training program, graduated from there, and then returned back to my squadron to be an instructor.
Fantastic. Chris, could you tell the audience what a typical day looks like as a Top Gun pilot, and how do you cope with that pressure?
Yeah, great. Well, first, it's not as exciting as the movie. So let's set that tone right from the beginning. The key word is, you're identified as a lead or a key instructor, and that's the role, is you will spend most of your time teaching and training and then doing some evaluation as well. So, probably an early morning brief, 2-hour brief, you give it to a younger pilot, or you receive a brief from a pilot training or going through upgrades for their tactical training. And then you go fly the event. It may be 50 minutes long to an hour and a half. We come back and then debrief. And then the debrief is where the real learning occurs, because things happen fast airborne. And now it's time to look at each communication that you made. How did you fly the airplane? How did you use the sensors that are available on the airplane? And did you max perform per the tactics we want? people to employ. So, and then as you exit this debrief might be 15 minutes to an hour long, or it might be 2 to 3 to 4 hours long, depending on the type of mission that you were flying. So the high emphasis on the debrief, really around this idea of brief, execute, and debrief.
That's fantastic. I wish we could all master, especially me, the whole plan, brief, execute almost perfectly, and then debrief after, and have a super thick skin probably to take some of the criticism, I bet.
Yeah. No, it's good. And I think it's key that we no matter whether it was my last flight or my first flight, there are points to debrief always. For Top Gun itself, it's not only by the time you are selected to go to Top Gun, you can certainly brief and debrief very, very well. Execution is where you take it to the next level, where it has to be nearly flawless, or you'll fail the flight and have to fly it again. And too many failures they'll send you home. So it's quite pressure inducing and quite stressful.
Yeah, sounds like a real pressure cooker environment.
Yes.
Chris, I understand that a typical Top Gun flies at 1,000 kilometers an hour. And at such speed, you've got the blood draining out of your brain. And clearly you're under a lot of mental pressure as well. And you have to stay focused on the task. How as a Top Gun did you cope with all that?
Yeah, so it's good. There are points where it's very stressful, and you need to be able to execute through those levels of stress and a bit of anxiety, whatever it may be. And so I think as a base, we know you need to be fit, be physically fit, and have the right mental kind of attitude, and so that's kind of the base. And this physical fitness is built around getting enough sleep. So we know we need 6 to 8 hours of sleep at night to sustain high performance, and that's true. I tend to not believe people who say they're super successful and don't sleep that much. So you need the sleep, you need to eat well, and that sets kind of the basis. So if you don't have that, you can't perform. And then after that, I think we talk about a couple techniques to help people kind of go through the process, and one is around compartmentalization. So you have to be very strong that when you walk to, we talk about walking to the jet, and when you walk to the jet, the part of life that is not revolving around that flight, you need to compartmentalize and basically kind of turn off or shut off so that you can compartmentalize on the task at hand and ensure all your physical and mental stamina can go into the task we're about to do for the next hour and a half. So that's very important. And then we talk about even each part of the flight. Okay, because even on the most advanced Top Gun flight, you still have to start the engines properly. You still need to do your administrative tasks properly. And so you can't get to the really advanced things. You still have to do the basics right. And you execute that so you can compartmentalize through the flight. And some other things we talk about is self-visualization, where you basically chair fly the entire flight or aspects of the flight. You sit in a chair, and you just mentally think about, what am I going to see? What are the radio calls I'm going to make? What do I expect the sensors to show me in the cockpit to know what is happening? How am I going to respond to that? What am I expecting to see or hear from my wingman? And so the self-visualization is really important. And the other part of where it's really important is, so as a Marine, I was still trained and deployed twice on Navy aircraft carriers. So we also talk about visualization of landing. So you come back from the flight, and now you have to land on the aircraft carrier. And so it's a you can try more than once. You want to land the first try. But when you're you're doing the self-visualization, you can just imagine, what is it going to look like as I come at the back of the ship? What should it look like? What should I be doing with the power or with the stick? And it's really important, and it helps. And I said those aspects help: physical, mental health, compartmentalization, and self-visualization.
And I'm sure those are things that perhaps even I can apply. After our interview tonight, I should go home and get my pen and paper out and start committing to some of those things. No, that's super helpful advice, especially in the times that we live in now, Chris. People sometimes experience extreme mental and physical challenges, which impedes their ability to focus and achieve goals. What techniques could you recommend, especially to youth? And other parts of our audience as to how do we stay focused on our targets despite extreme mental and physical pressure?
Yeah, sure, Zara. There's a couple thoughts come to mind. I don't think there's no glamorous solution, and we'll talk about resides around self-discipline. I think one aspect of discipline here that can be very helpful, and is something I try to do as well, and still today, is around establishing a routine, especially when it's uncertain or chaotic. Is having a routine to help set the base for the day. So, my nature to continue to try to get up fairly early, and then that provides an opportunity for exercise in the morning, and then it kind of sets apart different parts of the day: breakfast, work, kind of lunch, work, maybe some, and then time with family in the evening. Especially now with this working from home, the difficulty of separating work and family is okay. Now I need to try very hard to turn that part of life off and turn on a different part. And I think, this helps kind of, but that structure I think is really important. And of course, you can't stay deeply mentally focused for 8 hours a day. It's in this structure. When is there an hour or two of hard kind of work or mental work or physical work for that matter as well? And then when is there a break? When is there time for some fun? Because you clearly need some fun, and then the weekends as well. I'm now, with having a family as well, I think preserving family time is critical to ensuring, that balanced view in life.
That's awesome. That's not something that we think about typically when we think about routine, but it's good to recognize that we need to devote some moments to a hobby or something that gives us joy through the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's a famous in the U.S. It was a few years ago, a famous commencement speech where the speaker said basically, if you want to change the world, start by making your bed when you wake up. I think this has a lot of meaning. You've accomplished something in the day, and it's only 6 o'clock in the morning, but you've already accomplished something. It sets the tone. I like it. Easier said than done, I know. And I have teenage daughters. They're not exactly excited to get a routine started in the morning, but I do think it's helpful.
Definitely. Chris, I wanted to share a quote from the Top Gun movie. Failure doesn't make you any less great. Don't listen to the lies of failure. What does that mean for you? What can it mean for us as the average person as we approach our lives in our relationships, career, business?
Yeah. It's a pretty meaningful quote in a way, even though it comes out of a movie. I think it means a great deal around. We will all have trials and tribulations in life and make mistakes. This is normal. It happens like in a flight and training. There will be mistakes made. Even if you're the Top Gun patch wearer, you will also not be perfect. So we need to talk about that and learn from that. But life also, we're all human, and it's innate that we will make mistakes in life, and you can't let it define you. And then the idea also is not to repeat the same mistakes. So this is good. In life, that would be best to not keep repeating the same mistakes. So, and there's this kind of heuristic in aviation that we talk about is, say you have 1,000 hours of flight time. That's kind of seen as a pivotal goal or pivotal time, because after that, you should be quite good at that point. But there's this idea: did you fly one flight 1,000 times and basically not learn anything, or did you fly 1,000 times and learn in every hour of flight time? And that, I think, 1 for 1,000 or 1,000 for 1, and you want a life of 1,000 for 1, which is okay. This happened. This is what we've learned, and let's we'll do it again, or next time we won't make the same mistakes. And I think these are helpful, and this is a lot about mentally and thinking back and mentally doing a debrief or lessons learned or a deep dive. May not always be pleasant, but it's often helpful.
That's super helpful advice. So definitely, what can we learn from every interaction with our families or friends, in business, at work, and what can we learn from it? So we're flying 1,000 flights, but improving after each one.
Right, absolutely.
Perfect. As a pilot and a trainer of pilots, Chris, in extreme conditions, nevertheless, how did you keep your team motivated? Could you share some of the methods that you use to keep your team motivated? and by extension, how we keep ourselves motivated, our families, our businesses, our teams at work.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in communication. So you kind of make some of the basics are in place around that everyone's properly, the family's, properly taken care of, or at work, the basics are in place. But then, from there, I think it's a lot about communication. What do I know? Who should I tell? And have I told them? Which is a Marine Corps saying that we use. I think that still applies always. And it's super simple. It's just like, what do I know? Have I told? Or what do I know? Who should I tell? And have I told them? I think it's just such a simple piece of advice. And I think people, whether it's an organization or a family, are often innately very resilient. What makes them more resilient is when they know what's going on and why. And even if it's as simple as, this is not, something's not working the way we wanted, it's unfortunate, there was an accident, or something's failed. But if you communicate, talk about it, I think this can be very helpful. People almost always want to know, what does it mean for me immediately? Whether even at this age, it's still tough to go, that your first reaction is, what does this mean for me? What does it mean for my family? What does it mean for work? So I think this communication is helpful. I'm a bit, I think a bit of humor in the most stressful situations, just a bit of humor to kind of bring the stress level down, get a couple laughs. I think this is good. And then around all this is, we know some of the best leaders are, they share a compelling story, and storytelling has been around for thousands of years. And there's a reason, the sharing of a story that tells a lesson or just communicates a vision that that people will want to follow, I think is really helpful. And then you provide, and then take people on the journey. And I think that helps people be resilient, and families as well.
That's great. Chris, your background taught you resilience, discipline, and adaptability. During this pandemic, the world is changing, obviously, and we're going to have to accept this new normal construct of society. How can we find self-discipline in a life filled with chaos? I mean, in the heart of all this chaos, how do you focus and prioritize? Like, what do I need to do for myself, my family, my business, or work?
Yeah. So quite a deep topic, or a deep question, actually. So I would say I try to practice what I preach, a bit. I generally get up fairly early in the morning, generally work out each morning, nearly every day, and then kind of start a routine that takes me through the day. And then my current kind of routine, and then try to end 6 or 7 p.m. and then try to turn off work and ensure turning on family, because in a way the last 3 or 4 months have provided a unique opportunity for me personally to be home every night with my family, and that's been quite joyful. So, and then I think it's eating, sleeping, and not being idle. We know when we're idle and we don't have a routine, then bad habits can develop. We can make poor choices, whether as an individual, or not help our teams do that as well. For work, one of the things two things I kind of focus on for my team is communication. Like, here's where we are. Here's where we're going. It's going to change. We do change. We're lead transformation, so we're often pushing people to change. Not easy to do. Why are we doing what we're doing? So that they have purpose in what they do. Kind of purpose, North Star, these kind of ideas. And then the other thing I've done for work is, again, to help my team with routine. While we're remote, we have a morning catch up at 8:35 every day. And I didn't know at first if this would really work that well. It's kind of every day, and these are well-trained, educated people. Would they want to do this? We find it works quite well. It starts the day, and I get as much from it as they get. So I understand what they're working on, what their priorities are for the day. Then I repeat what I'm going to do for them or for the team. Do I need to do something for them to help them get done what they need to do? And then we can also look a week ahead, 30 days ahead. And then we just kind of do these quick updates. 25 minutes, we're off by 9, because often people have meetings starting at 9. And that routine for work, I think, has been very helpful. And then and I would just end with is prioritization, whether it's a family or for work, is there's so much going on. And I think you can literally lose your mind watching the news and all that. I think you got to turn some of that off and then just go, what are the 3 to 4 things that are super important for me, my family, and for work, and focus on those. Again, probably easier said than done, but turning the noise volume down, I think is helpful for all of us.
That's a great step one. Definitely. Yes. What tools do you think we can use to attack and manage our way through COVID as individuals and business leaders?
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I do like heuristics, and one of them that I use, and I do it, especially when I'm talking around like complex change, large corporate transformations, is the idea around structure, governance, and attitude. And I know it sounds super basic, but whether it's at home or at work, if we don't place the right structure to succeed, and to put a base together, and that base has to be there. And then there's this idea of, and this structure can be around, do we have the right people? Do we have the right processes at work? At home, do we just have the right routine at home? So the children have the opportunity to be educated, we can work, and we can keep the family unit, kind of together. And then governance, in this governance, do you have the right schedule of communication and feedback so that you can deliver on the priorities that need to be set at home as well? I think as the best family governance meeting is the evening dinner. Like, what did you do today? And we try to kind of practice this here, and each of the girls kind of talk about what they did that day, and just to kind of, some days it doesn't sound like a lot, so maybe we need to do more. And sometimes I think for work, did I accomplish and create as much value as I could have? And the last part, so structure, governance, and the last one is attitude. This is, sometimes we have to create our own positive attitude, and sometimes we need to help others, whether through communication and engagement, have a good attitude, because you need all three, I think, or I believe you do, to make things happen, especially when it's chaotic or uncertain in complex areas. And then, set some priorities and stick to them, and then have some fun. I mean, like I said, the news is serious, but it can become very much about doom and gloom. And that the human race, super adaptable, has survived for thousands and thousands of years. We will get through this. And so hope, I think, is also something to keep in mind as well. We will overcome this.
I'm sure it's really hard, at least for some of us, to keep focused on that North Star and on hope, especially when sometimes we really don't feel like having a particularly positive attitude.
Yes. Yeah. I know there are, I'm very fortunate in life, and there are many others who are in very tough situations, and it is very difficult. What I can offer is, through that is this idea of around, okay, what do I need to do, and how am I going to get there? What kind of routine or structure can I put in place, or at least put mental structure around it, so I can work through the day, set some goals, and work towards them, and then involve other people, communicate, whether family or friends or coworkers, because none of us are going to survive this or be successful on our own.
Very true. That's brilliant. I'm sure some of us can take a leaf out of your book there. What's your vision for a world post-COVID, Chris? What advice do you have for our viewers as they position themselves in time segments ahead? From a personal perspective, from a business perspective, from a professional perspective, for example, October 2020, April 2021, September 2021.
Yeah, I think for all of us, and I think we've discussed this at my work quite a bit as well, is like, what does this mean? And I think what is most important to start, I think mentally, like this mental framework is time. Even if by the end of August, we had an approved vaccine, There's over 6.5 billion people in the world. We'll start vaccinating the elderly and those at risk first. And this is a global, like something that's never really been done before. At this pace, we'll need to do it. It's going to take time. So I think I think it's mentally important to set the framework that kind of like it is now, hopefully not as bad in some areas as it is right now, but we're not returning even to the new normal for another year, maybe even 18 months. So there's going to be this challenge that exists around us for a period of time. So, and that's not, and I don't say that I do that for a framework, not to make scare or say it's crazy or going to be really bad. It's just that it's going to be kind of tough like this for a while. Okay. So then we go, okay, I got it. So it's going to take some time. We set that mental timeline. Okay, now what are we going to prioritize? What do we need to do? What structures need to put in place? Will my children be in school or out of school? Will I have a job or not? Do my parents need to be with us or not with us? What do I do at work? And that sets that framework. And then, this kind of the structure, governance, attitude piece. What are the priorities, in that? Because we will come through it. Like I said, I'm an optimist at heart. And so we will come through it. It will take some time. What I would, encourage people to refrain from is to go, by October, it's going to be fine. Or by January 1st of 2021, it's going to be fine. I don't think that's the case. It will be, we'll be okay, but we're not going to be through this. And so just having that kind of mental framework and timeline to know, okay, well, this is going to be this way for a while. I need to find a way to succeed this way. And there's this expression that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. There are opportunities here, as an individual to grow and change, and there's opportunities for families. And I think one that I've appreciated is I've spent more time with my wife and my daughters than I have in a long time. What a great opportunity. And it wouldn't have happened probably if it hadn't been forced. So I take that as a great benefit. And work will have many challenges, and work will change because of the crisis. So find the opportunity, because they do exist. And there are going to be some incredibly entrepreneurial or creative people who are going to find some really creative ways in the crisis to get ahead. And we need to find those because we don't want to let ourselves go down the negative spiral of despair. We need to pause that as able, and then we find a way to move forward.
That's fantastic. So what I'm hearing you say, Chris, is first of all, accept it's going to be a long haul journey ahead.
Yep.
Set yourself up for that so you don't get easily disappointed if things don't work out the way you'd like.
Right.
And then think about, how can I reinvent myself, or how can I pivot myself, my business or my career, given
Yes.
now that I have a little bit more time to reflect, how can I use my time creatively?
Yes.
And basically that'll help me if I prioritize, if I kind of compartmentalize as well, focus on the bits of controlling what I can control, and forgetting about the stuff that I cannot control.
Yes.
And then, and there are going to be moments, I'm sure, where we all feel down.
Yes.
And I guess we just have to pick ourselves up, stop the pity party, maybe acknowledge it first, and then make most of the time that we have. And reflecting upon what aspects of our life, of our relationships we want to see improvements in, and then focusing on those and taking the steps one step at a time, pretty much.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And there is a path forward here. We all have to get ourselves onto it and take it. But there is a way forward.
Amen to that. I guess a critical piece you remind us, Chris, is positive attitude and hope by extension. In a speech actually at Aiglon College in Switzerland in 2014, His Highness the Aga Khan spoke of the potential of hope in times of uncertainty. And I'd like to quote this. The actual process of replacing fear with hope rests with each individual in his or her society. And they can become an enormous source of growing strength and reassurance for one another. I hope that will happen for you end quote. I hope it'll happen for us too.
Absolutely.
Sooner rather than later.
Words. Yeah, wise words.
Yeah. And I guess amidst the uncertainty, there certainly are reasons to be hopeful, I think. Scientific research shows us that people are 15 times more likely to recover, or rather, that 15 times as many people recover from COVID as those who don't. So what that means, in other words, is the majority of us hopefully are going to recover if we get it. And to a large extent, children are unaffected. So I guess the message is that hope needs to go viral.
Yes,
for the human race to prevail.
Yes, very good.
Thank you so much for inspiring us, Chris. And good luck with all your endeavors and keeping on track.